Advisory Committee. We'll call to order. It is September 1st, 2021. And I will move to the next slide. Just do a call of introductions. So I think online I can't see everybody right now, but earlier I saw is Henry Stroud. Are you still on, Henry?
Still here.
Yep. Robin Lewis from the City of Bend.
Hi, everyone.
Andrea Bro from CET.
Here.
Liza Hamada, one of our citizen representatives. Peter Russell from Deschutes County.
I'm here.
Dave Thompson from Deschutes County VPAC.
Good morning.
And Rick Williams from ODOT Region 4.
Present.
And then I don't know, do we have any other voting members that have joined in just the last couple of minutes? If not, the other folks I know
Not
that are
at this
online.
time. Yep.
Pardon me?
No other ones.
Okay. I see we have Rachel Tupica from the Federal Highway Administration is on. Rachel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning. I'm Rachel Topeka. I'm the Senior Planner and Technical Services Team Leader with Federal Highway Administration's Oregon Division Office. So it's nice to be here this morning.
Great. Thank you for joining us. And I think Teresa Conley from ODOT Region 4, our Public Transit Liaison, is on.
Hi, everyone. Like Tyler said, my name is Teresa Conley, and I am kind of the transit liaison for Central Oregon. I'm just here to listen in.
Great. Thank you. And Cameron Prow, our recorder.
Present.
All right. Anyone else?
We have two visitors, Wendy Holzman, who is on the Deschutes County Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and also Gary Vodden, Citizen Bend, is here. And I think we've got everyone. Welcome.
Hobie, do you want to address this one?
Yes, sorry. So virtual meeting guidelines, I think everyone's pretty clear on this at this point, but please raise your hand at any time if you need any assistance. We'll be happy to help and to weigh in on any topic at this meeting. If you have any other questions, just go ahead and flag me with the raised hands. There's no chat function. Also, this meeting is being recorded. You will have this access through YouTube. It's live streaming right now, and then also later you'll be able to look at the Bend MPO YouTube channel if you want to revisit anything.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just agenda item 3 is public comment. Wendy or Gary, do either of you have anything you'd like to share with us?
Nope, I don't, Tyler. Thank you.
Moving on, agenda item 4 is review and approval of the June 2nd draft meeting minutes. Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to move approval of the June 2nd draft meeting minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Peter. Any discussion? Not. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you. Agenda item 5, OB is going to just give you a brief update on our Title VI and equity mapping. So Hobie, I'll let you take it away.
All right, thanks everyone. So the Bend MPO is required to do a Title VI plan and also an environmental justice review for our area. And we update these maps every year with the current data. And we just wanted to show you what was updated, give you just some background on this information. So Title VI and environmental justice, sometimes called EJ regulations, are intended to make participation in transportation planning more to include and be more inclusive of diverse communities in our planning. So we've been really trying to go out to our community and make sure they're knowledgeable about what planning projects we're working on, and updating our public participation plan to really include all the citizens in our planning area. So these two rules help us with some of that planning work that we're doing. So we'll just go through some brief information on the next slide as to how that data works. You know, we've got a Title VI analysis where we pull up our planning areas, obtain maps, review the local information that we've got, find out any demographics that we can identify through our main data sources, the American Community Surveys or census data, and other sources that we hear of, you know, if we have any other populations that we can help communicate some of this planning effort to. And then looking at those planning documents to see if there's an impact or benefit to any identified populations and how we can help mitigate or help build those out. So on the next slide, we'll just go into the maps, but if there's any questions, that was pretty high level of what Title VI is. There's definitely more on our website and a whole Title VI plan that you can go through. The 5 maps that we do update every year are the age, race and Hispanic origin, poverty, limited English proficiency, and disability. So these are updated, and on the next slides, you'll see how they've changed from our 2017 map to our 2019 map. I know that's a 2-year gap, but 2018 was a little rough to get data from. So we're going to skip that year. Just a background about this data. This is a 5-year average based on the American Community Surveys data. So in 2020, you will only have a small change probably to the data just because it's just adding one more year to a 5-year average. This isn't just 1-year data. So that helps it become a little more reliable and gives us some confidence in the data sets. 1-year data sometimes has a very large margin of error, and we want to make sure that we're as accurate as we can be. So you'll see in these maps, the senior populations shifted a little bit. While the maps are the same coloring, some of the legends may be off by a couple percents as far as how things were split. But overall, these maps show what the Bend urbanized area average is. So you'll see in 2017, we had 15.9% of the senior population. And in 2019, it increased to 16.6%. So we use that as our average. And then from there, you'll see the maps show gray means that they are below the average. And the colored sections show that they're above average. So in each of these maps, that's how these are indicated. And then we also showed the state and the US for the senior population average, just to show where we fit within those areas. Is there any question on the senior, or do you want me to go through any of the census block areas that these are identified with as we go through? Each one of these maps will look similar, but I just wanted to give a high level overview of how this data is used.
Hovey, can you talk about what the boundary of the urbanized area is, and if that includes more than what we're seeing on the map, or is it just this area? Well, what's the extent of the urbanized area?
Yeah, so the Bend urbanized area is the MPO boundary at this point. We do have authorization to expand our MPO boundary beyond that, but our last expansion, we kept it completely at the urbanized area. So you'll see the small jog up in Tumalo as our urbanized area. It's just that top north, really skinny area. Those are urbanized areas. The data behind this isn't that shape for the block group. So what we did is just kind of cut out the MPO colors here. But you'll see like the Tumalo North area is a very large census block, and we just show a very small section of that just to give context to the MPO.
Yeah, Hovey, you read my mind, because we actually have just underwent a very, very similar kind of data collection and mapping effort here. And one of the things that we struggled with was really the sheer size of some of these block groups that overlap the park district boundary, which is fairly similar to the MPO's boundary, and how to include them. So when you calculated the averages, did you just include those entire block groups in the averages, and then just for the visualization purpose, you're showing?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we used the entire block group for the average, and then visually we just showed the section that's in the MPO.
Got it.
There isn't a way to get a sub allocation of that area, so we used the best data we could.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's definitely an art and science at the same time. But we'll go to the next one then, which is our population below poverty. You'll see it has shifted a little, but also our poverty rate has decreased by about 0.5% as well in this data set for 2019. And we hope that continues, but also the areas that show a population below poverty continue to be around the same. There were a little bit of shifts on the west side from a concentrated area right to the base of the college to near the college. And that could, just guessing, it could be just student populations, but we're not sure at this point what the little section at the northeast corner is. So we'll go to the next one, which is race and Hispanic origin. And this one it was labeled as minority populations in our past maps, and we updated it because in order to get this data, the percent of population by block group that did not identify as white alone was really the factor that we used, and then if there was Hispanic population within that. So this is what we've been using for these last two maps, but we just clarified the title to make it a little more clear that it wasn't all, because the other populations that we have were so low that it didn't show on any maps. So this gives us a good picture of populations that don't identify as white, which is the best we have for the ACS data at this point. You'll see that the comparison with Bend MPO in 2017, our average was 13.5, and again, a half a point up, 0.5% up in 2019. So a little more diversity is being shown here, and the center of the city shows the most diverse areas based on this 2019 data. Any questions on this map? All right, go on to the next one, which is limited English proficiency. So this is kind of and just to explain the definition, limited English proficiency, sometimes you'll see just LEP on a map, is individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and do not have a limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English. So this data is based on the American Community Surveys for anyone over 5 who doesn't speak English very well is another. English less than well is another term that is used. So we use this just to identify populations, and then from there we can target those block groups. We can find out what language is spoken and help to communicate transportation planning information to those communities in the language that they speak. Typically it's Spanish for these areas, but there could be some small communities with Russian as well. The next one is populations with disabilities. This is defined as anyone identifying having one or more of the 6 disability types within the American Community Surveys: sensory, physical, mental, self-care, go outside of the home, or employment disability. So those populations you'll see in 2017 seem to have a higher percentage in certain block groups. And while the numbers may have gone down for 2019, the areas, at least in the center section of that city, continue to be the same. And then just for the population in general, our total population in Deschutes County in 2019 was about 193,000. The estimated total population within the Bend MPO was a little over 100,000. So when you look at these percentages, that will help you kind of get a number of persons within each map that have each one of these identified characteristics. Using all this data, the City of Bend GIS folks on the next slide, Tyler, created a Bend online mapping tool. It's used for the general obligation bond projects. However, it's the same data that I just showed you that the MPO created with those same percentages of above average. So you won't see you won't see block groups showing up that have the below average, but the data is still in there. And I was gonna open this up, but for some reason it's going really slow. So I think I'll just kind of explain it. I want you to know it's live and that the agenda has this link in it, so you can open it through the agenda link that's posted online. But on this, you'll see on the left, there's 5 switches, and those are the 5 maps that I just showed you. So you can turn on and off each data set. When you click on a census block group, you'll get the window that is shown on the left that shows a percentage. So this example shows that center block group with a poverty rate. Hold on a second. 32.8%. Just needed to move it up for a second. And then you'll see the ranges to the right, which are the same as what the map showed that we just had. And then for this particular map dashboard, when you click on a project, it'll zoom into it, and then you can see a little closer what the demographics are. This also shows, like Henry was saying, those larger block groups outside of the MPO. So when you see this one maybe shows, like for Deschutes River Woods, the south section of Bend, you see that big green census block. That's the area outside the MPO that was calculated within that percentage. That's one block group. So that kind of gives you a visual of what we were just talking about with how those block groups could be really big, but not within our boundary and are still considered part of the percentage. So, any questions on this dashboard? And I'd love to have our members look at this, and we'd like to expand it to create something for other projects that we're working on, not just the general obligation bonds projects through the city of Bend, but also expand this kind of dashboard to our transportation improvement program, so you can see those projects within the equity demographics, and then also other planning tools or projects that we do. Dave, I see your hand up.
Yeah, one question, I guess, and one comment. The question is, this is the federal poverty line definition that we're
Yes.
using? Okay, so
That is household of 4 is about 25,000 a year.
right. So my observation is that probably undercounts, given that this is a very high priced place to live, right? And my other thing is just, I think we believe that there's kind of an outflow of people that would fit in that category out of Bend into the surrounding areas, just because of the high cost of housing in Bend itself. So it's interesting that the number went up a little bit, the percentage, but I suspect that the number of people who...
Yeah, actually for poverty, the number went down.
Oh, did it? Okay.
The Bend urbanized area.
Oh, yeah, it did.
11.1, and in 2019 it was 10.6.
Yeah, so...
But still, and that's 2019. I don't know what these next couple of years are going to look like. There was a lot of movement, a lot of changes within our city through COVID. So I don't know what that's going to look like quite yet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So as far as the dashboard, please use the agenda link and open that tool. I think it's very useful. And then if you have any questions or comments as to another way that we could use it, my goal is to work with our GIS folks here at the City of Bend and create a dashboard that I can add new projects to. And so if there's any comments you have, please let me know.
Yeah, Hovey, one comment and maybe just a suggestion on how to take this a step further, and something that we did. One of the difficulties we had when we started looking at this data was really like, okay, how do we make sense of it? You know, because if you put it into 4 categories and one may look dark red, but how different is that really than the average? And so one of the things that we did was we calculated the percent change for each one of the block groups from the district average, or in your case, it would be the MPO average. And then we were able to set a threshold of 50% and say, okay, these are the block groups that are greater than 50% different than the regional average. And then we created maps just with one color that showed all those, you know, quote unquote, significantly higher block groups. But that really helped us internally use the data when we were ranking projects. We just did a reprioritization of some of our trail projects. And that was, I think, one way that really helped at least people that weren't intimately familiar with the data understand it. That's just the direction we went. You know, I was diving into some of the environmental justice literature and trying to figure out, is there a set difference that we should be looking at? And I couldn't really find any clear direction. So if you have any insights on that, I'd love to hear it. But that's just an example, I think, of maybe how we could take this data one step further.
Yeah, and that's really useful. It's really hard to look at all 5 of these components separately and trying to find a, you know, there's been some work out there about equity scores and how they could be worked together. So being able to bring that all together would be great. Another example that I've heard of is Bellingham, Washington has a really good equity mapping tool. So that would be something else you may want to research. And we can all connect with you after the meeting. I'll definitely build some good tools here to help. But I think, yeah, that is it. I just want to give you some, the link is here again. This presentation will be posted on the TAC website, and then also on that equity, public participation and your rights page, which has our Title VI annual reports, these equity maps in a PDF form, And then also our public participation plan is there. So those two resources are here for you and will be updated annually. So just wanted to keep you apprised of that. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Tyler.
All right, we'll jump to our next agenda item. Just going to give you a quick update on where we are with some work that we're doing related to our transportation safety action plans. And I'll lead most of this, but I'll ask Obi may jump in on a couple of things as well. So I think we brought a presentation to you about this earlier this year, but back in 2018 and 2019, we worked with a consultant team to develop transportation safety action plans for both Bend and Deschutes County. And those plans include both infrastructure recommendations as well as non-infrastructure recommendations. And the non-infrastructure recommendations, that's really getting into or dealing with things that can't easily be fixed with infrastructure. So that's behavioral issues. It's drunk driving, speeding, aggressive driving, and so on. And so after we completed work on that, we reached out to ODOT and were able to secure grant funding to kind of start working on that non-infrastructure side of things. And with the work that we're doing right now, our focus areas on that non-infrastructure is creating a safety communications plan and a communications calendar. And so it's really getting at some of those things that I just mentioned and starting to push that message out. And so we're getting those things wrapped up right now, and we will start pushing out those messages later this year and through 2022. The other couple of things we're doing is we're working to form a regional safety committee to help keep this effort moving forward. And right now, what we're hoping to do is to have that committee housed within the Central Oregon Area Commission on Transportation, with the idea that we want to push this beyond just Bend and Deschutes County into the whole Central Oregon area. And then the last item on there is creating a funding strategy with our partners so we can keep this work moving forward. So our current grant expires at the end of this month. We're working right now with ODOT again to secure additional grant funding for next federal fiscal year, and we're hoping to hopefully have everything in place for that by the end of this month, so we can continue on with this work. Just a quick update on where we are with safety data are showing what's happened. These are just raw numbers that are shown on the screen here. These are not rates. And so you can see that total crashes in Deschutes County, we saw a dip, back at the beginning of the Great Recession, that 2009-2010 timeframe. And then as we came out of it, they started to increase. And those total number of crashes increased steadily until 2017. And then they dropped off a little bit out in 2018 and 2019. That orange or brown line that you're seeing, that is the number of fatalities in Deschutes County. And you can see that it's bounced around a little bit over the last decade or so. But starting in 2019, we've seen a sharp increase in fatalities. And we think that 2021 is on track to probably meet or exceed those 2020 numbers. What we don't have on here, because we don't have the data yet, is if you looked at the underlying amount of travel that's been taking place, when COVID hit, the amount of travel decreased pretty significantly locally and statewide. So you would have seen, I think our VMT numbers were down by at least 10%, if not more. Is that right, Hovey?
Yeah, on some corridors as high as 40% in the beginning of COVID. So there.
Yeah. And so while travel was down, our number of serious crashes has gone up. And this isn't unique to us. This is something that's been happening across almost the entire United States. There's been a pretty sharp uptick in the number of severe crashes that result in fatalities. And as noted here, in 2020, there were 31 deaths in Deschutes County. If you look back, that's the highest number of fatalities in at least 15 years. So pretty large number. What what we find when you look through the crash data, is that I just mentioned it's speeding, intoxicated driving, distracted driving, and then seat belts. And the interesting thing about seat belts is Oregon has the highest, or we're one of the top 2 or 3 states in terms of the percentage of people who use seat belts. What you find in serious crashes, crashes where there's a serious injury or fatality, quite a few of those folks are not buckled up. And so we're still continuing to push that message because of the impacts of those types of crashes. So we are starting work, I mentioned, on getting our public education campaigns up and organized. We are working we have a consultant, Barney and Worth, helping us get all that information organized and really focusing on the 4 bullets on the screen there on the left side. And I've mentioned, there's the ones there's pretty solid data on the sober driving, speeding, and distracted driving in terms of the impact of those issues on crashes. The other thing that we wanted to push here is that through our development of our safety action plans, we always see when as winter first gets here and we get our first icy days, snowy days, there's always a big uptick in crashes. And while those crashes typically don't result in serious injuries, we just want to do some messaging around people to be aware, as the seasons change, to really plan more time for their trips. And then in the summertime, it's the same issue. I don't think we've seen an uptick in our number of crashes during the summer months, but it's more of the messaging around that we see, such a significant increase in the number of people walking and biking throughout the community, is for people to be paying attention as they're out on the road. And so we'll be using a lot of messaging around these issues is already out there, both state level and federal level. And so we'll be grabbing a lot of those messages and developing our own kind of campaign to do that. Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, thanks. Especially in the summer, I wonder if there's any thought to messaging directed at visitors.
Yes, we've talked about that. We've talked about that specifically within our project team, is to ways that we can do that. And we are going to be reaching out to Visit Bend, and then trying to see if we can, somehow get messaging into the hotels, and other venues around that very issue. Anything on that, Hobie, that I missed?
No, that's all on track. The Visit Bend does have a pledge for all visitors to drive safely and that sort of thing. So maybe just helping Visit Bend reach the target audiences and just show some targeted messaging that may be more impactful than the pledge that they have out already. But they are definitely on board. We just haven't been able to connect yet to create some more projects.
Yeah, I think a message that says, hey, we love to share our beautiful environment with you, help keep us all safe. We're all out having fun, kinds of things might have more impact than just, hey, slow down.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think the messaging in general that we're trying to do is, it's more just what you said, Dave. On a general level, we want to pursue positive messaging about, like you said, sharing, making sure that everybody gets to where they want to go safely, that type of thing. And we're going to try and hopefully minimize the amount of negative type of messaging and campaigning that we do. Any questions? So I think one of the big outcomes of our current project is we're organizing a safe travel summit that's going to be held on Thursday, September 30th at 11:30 in the morning. Invitations for that will go out in the next couple of days, I think. And the other thing that we're pushing is it's a very, very simple online survey that will be live. If it's not live yet, it will be later today.
By the end of the day, yes.
So we've had some technical issues with that, but it's almost there. And so we will be sending out, everyone on the meeting today will get notification of both of those, both the summit as well as the survey. And so just your role, something we're asking this, we're going to be presenting the same message to the Bend City Council. We've also shared this with the Deschutes County Commission. It's trying to get them and get all of our elected officials engaged in it and getting them to promote the survey. Any questions or suggestions?
So this is Peter. One thing you might want to do, I was went to a seminar on road user safety. They were using Clackamas County. And so their public safety messenger, I can't remember if he's in their transportation department or their public health department, but those two departments work together a lot. Rob, and I'm going to butcher his last name. It's like Grokowski or something like that, but he's kind of a renowned expert on safety messaging and reaching out and building a safety culture in a county. So you might want to have, either you guys or your consultant tap Clackamas County to see what they've come up with, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
We've actually met with Clackamas County staff. We've met with the guy that you just mentioned, as well as Joe Merrick.
Yeah.
Who got everything rolling up there 10 plus years ago.
Yeah. And
they are going to be, one or both of them are actually going to join us for the summit and just provide an overview of the work that they've done up in Clackamas County. I mean, they've done by far the most work of any county in the state. And so, as you mentioned, we're hoping to, kind of ride their coattails and not have to reinvent the wheel with some of the safety, understand what they've done, their successes, their failures, and build upon that, for our own local process here. All right. Any other questions or comments? I think once we get the campaign materials all organized, we'll be able to share that with you hopefully next month.
Yep. And keep an eye out the billboards there'll be one in Revere and one South Bend that will be installed today or early tomorrow. And that's one of the delays with getting the survey out. We wanted to make sure everything was up first. So there's a lot going on with the safety campaign. So when you see the Safe Travel Summit or Central Oregon Safe Travel, please send it out to your groups as well.
So do you have any, proposed metrics, like what kind of reductions you want or anything, or general goals?
Not at this point. I think we're just starting with getting the safety message out, and then maybe we could get the elected officials to create some targeted measures after we get that going. Robin?
Yeah, I have a question. Is there anything in the data that indicates walk bike crashes are increasing, or walk bike fatalities or serious injuries? Or are they remaining fairly flat?
Preliminary data is only where we've got full data through 2019, but the 2020 and 21 are still just preliminary fatalities is all I've got. So I don't have more comprehensive outlooks than that at this point. I think 2019 remains the same as what we saw in our safety action plans for Deschutes County and Bend. So they are in line. They're not decreasing, but they're
they've been holding steady, basically, haven't they?
Yeah, which we consider any bike and pedestrian crash to be a serious crash, just because of the there's no margin of safety really there. You're either you may get, they're more vulnerable. So just considering the raw numbers of bike and pedestrian crashes are remaining the same.
Will we have messages targeted specifically to those trends?
Behaviors? Yeah.
Behaviors.
Yes.
Like back in 2012, it was wrong way riding was a significant one. And then nighttime riding, even though it was like there were only like 20 crashes, 19 of them were
serious injury.
Dark clothing, serious injury. So I'm wondering if there's, specific targeted aspects that will go towards walk bike.
So the communication plan that we have will use existing communications, but what we'll do is promote certain behaviors that we see within our crash data. And those will go out to our communication teams for the city and Deschutes County, and also be pushed out to Jefferson and Cook counties, because they have the same media audience. It made sense to expand the area to the 3-county region. This isn't just a Bend or a Deschutes County problem, basically. So, and everyone drives outside of their jurisdiction, so I don't want it to feel like this is only one area of safety.
Okay.
Dave?
Just a comment. I'm really happy to see this is kicking off. I mean, it's been kind of frustrating waiting 2 years since the reports were done.
Right.
To start making some progress. So hopefully we can keep moving on it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for your support. And I can talk about this at your meeting next week or this week later too, if you want.
Hey, that would be great. I'll put you on, I'll update the agenda.
Okay. Sounds good.
I would just mention one other thing. I mean, with the safety action plans that we put together back in 2019, some of the data within the Bend that came out of the Bend document was rolled, that specifically influenced some of the projects that were identified on the general obligation bond. And so there are at least, I mean, there's at least 4 or 5, probably more of the projects on the GO bond came directly out of the safety plan. And so there's more, there's been, there's been a delay in infrastructure, kind of the messaging side of things, but on the infrastructure side of things, we are going to start seeing, I think, more progress, to address some of the safety issues that were identified, in terms of being able to get some fixes on the ground.
And that's great. And I think, there's an awesome amount of work going on with the Go Bond stuff that you can't minimize, but on the other hand, the infrastructure part's always been the easiest.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Infrastructure is slow and expensive. So.
Yes.
All right. Well, nothing else. We can move on then. We had obviously a pretty small agenda today, so we have a fair amount of time for member roundtable updates. And I think I'd heard from Andrea Bro, Henry, and Rick that they all had updates. And if anyone else has anything else they'd like to share, let them jump in too. But Henry, would you like to go first?
Sure, appreciate it, Tyler. And thanks everyone for being patient with me. I feel like I've talked a lot in today's meeting. Maybe I'm just really excited to be back in the office. But yeah, just a quick update on some of our major projects. Many of you guys are aware that we're undergoing a major resurfacing effort of the Hall Road Trail. So this runs from Whitewater Park all the way to the border with the Deschutes National Forest. That work is ongoing. We started downtown and we're working our way west towards the forest, and we expect that project to be done within the next couple months. So once that's complete, you'll have a paved trail all the way from downtown to the Visitors Center. The other major project that we're working on is the construction of Alpenglow Park. So this has some pretty major infrastructure components, including a new bike and ped bridge over the BNSF railway. Work on that project is going very, very well. For those of you guys don't know, Alpenglow, it's a 40-acre park in southeast Bend off of 15th Street. And we are on schedule to have that opened in spring 2022. We also have some various bike and ped projects that have just been contracted, including a crossing safety improvement project for 2 intersections that's being funded by the MPO that's expected to be completed at some point this fall. And then lots of other little things. The one other thing I did want to say is that some of you guys may have seen an email this morning from my colleague Sarah, who's one of the other planners at the Park District. She is leaving the Park District and going back to her former digs at the National Park Service. So we are looking for a new full-time park planner. So if you guys know of anyone or anyone's interested, please feel free to reach out to me.
All right, thank you, Henry. Andrea, would you like to go next?
Hey, everyone. So just kind of the biggest update that actually occurred this morning, September 1st. We have contracted service in the city of Bend. They help provide the labor, essentially the drivers for all city of Bend services. That's Bend Fixed Route, Bend Dial-A-Ride, and Ride the River. We currently had a vendor called Paratransit Service Incorporated for the last 12 years, and we decided to go with a new vendor starting this morning. The transition went well from last night into this morning. The new vendor is called MTM Transit. They are based out of St. Louis, Missouri. And some of the highlights on why we chose this vendor was they tend to have more resources geared towards elder care training, de-escalation training, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and basically overall customer service training that we're looking to ensure that the drivers make sure they absorb that and provide a better experience for the riders for the city of Bend. So that contract just started as of this morning at 5 a.m. And we had no late buses, so I'm happy. So just wanted to share the good news.
That's great. Thank you. I guess just one other question for you, Andrea, unrelated to that. How is work progressing on the Hawthorne Station, the external revisions that are either going to take place or are taking place?
Sure. So the two projects related to the station itself, the interior, which was paid by an ODOT discretionary grant and a little bit of STIF funds, is now complete. We will actually be opening Hawthorne Station the Tuesday after Labor Day. We're not making a huge announcement just because of COVID and the Delta variant, but the station itself will be open for customer service and ticketing. Brand new, flooring, furniture, customer service counter, etc. So that's good to go. The second piece is we are winding down the design phase of our parking lots, which will allow us to bring those buses on site. So the design is about 90% there, and we anticipating going out to bid for construction in the spring of 22.
Great, thank you. Rick Williams.
Oh, hey, thanks, Taylor. I just want to talk about the progress we're making on getting the Highway 20 facility plan out the door. It's currently over with our procurement staff, and they're going through it right now, and they'll send it back over to me. I still have some comments to incorporate, mostly from Teresa Conley. I've received comments from a lot of folks on this call, Tyler, Robin, and Teresa specifically, but not able to accommodate everybody's wishes with the plan. So we've set the project limits from 3rd Street out to the Powell Butte Highway. And a majority of the focus is going to be on safe crossing and improved bicycle and pedestrian facilities and parallel routes that tie into the city's low stress network. I will be getting that back from procurement here probably in the next week or two, incorporate a few comments, then back over to procurement, and should be out on the street as an RFQ in, I'd say, 3 weeks or so, depending on how negotiations go. If it goes smoothly, have somebody on board in October, could be as late as November if negotiations with the selected consultant are protracted. Anybody have any questions about that facility plan statement of work? Okay,
Well,
done.
Can you talk about the role of that the MPO is going to have?
Oh, I apologize, Taylor. Sure. Kind of like we did with the Parkway plan, we'd like to use the MPO TAC as the technical resource to review memorandums when they are produced by the consultant, and then use the policy board, since it's made up of ODOT, the city, and the county elected officials, as kind of a steering committee. And when it's done, it usually will be adopted and acknowledged by the local jurisdictions, and then also by the Oregon Transportation Commission. But we're going to use the same process we used with the Parkway Plan for those of you that remember going through lots of memos over the 2016 through 2020 period.
All right, thank you, Rick. Do you have anything else to share just on general on the ODOT side of things?
Right now, we're actively engaged in scoping for the 24-27 STIP. So that's what most of the staff's doing. I personally am working on a handful of projects around the region. The two that are in Bend is that Highway 20 facility plan, and I'm working on a statement of work for the Reed Market Refinement study that's mentioned in the TSP, and some money out of the general obligation bonds going towards that study. And that'll be looking at the area on Reed Market from roughly the Brookswood roundabout to the 4th Street connection east of 3rd Street. The design of this study is to focus on items we can implement quickly, such as access management, raised medians, improvements to the intersection of 3rd and Reed Market, just to improve traffic flow in that area and also improve safety in that area.
Great, thank you. All right, does anyone else on the call have anything they'd like to share? I see Robin Lewis has her hand up.
So I just had a couple NSSP projects. They've moved fully into the Go Bond program. And we completed a couple of crosswalks that have been, on the city's to-do list for a number of years. So the most exciting one to me was the Brookswood Holly Grape crosswalk. If you guys have seen it down there, connect 2 halves of the neighborhood to their swimming pool and some access to school. Pearl Road at Reed Lane crosswalk. If you haven't used that, it's nice. Connects that neighborhood over to the commercial areas. So those were both built this summer, along with a couple of other minor projects. They've teed up some more crosswalks. American Lane, crossing Broster House at American Lane is probably one of the largest ones down there. And then I've been working with ODOT a lot on a couple different projects. The city's partnering with ODOT for a flap grant on Century Drive. And that could, if awarded, that could have some exciting crossings associated with that. And an initial, like a 30% plan for the overcrossing at tying the Tethrow Trail into the Hall Trail. So that would be exciting if we got that. Those grants are due early October. The other project I'm working with ODOT on is the Greenwood Arts Project. And so there's a fairly quick turnaround on that. By November, December, we will have a PS&E package for smaller walk, bike, and safety improvements for Greenwood between Wall and 3rd. And then we're trying to coordinate and tie that into the overall 3 corridor, what's called the Midtown Crossings projects. So it's out ahead of that effort, which the Midtown Crossings projects should start up soon. They're working on the scope of work, and get a consultant on board. So that effort's going to kick off. So Greenwood will come out first, but we'll be able to tie those all together, I think. And still working on some safe routes to school stuff with the school district. So it's pretty exciting. We have our needs list, and we'll start trying to program those in through CSRs, neighborhood street safety, and school grants.
I just wanted to, I don't know if everybody knows, but Robin threw out a few acronyms there. NSSP, that's the Neighborhood Street Safety Program. And that's something that was created, what, 3 years ago, Robin?
Yeah, so neighborhood street safety, it's neighborhood association led, and it allows the neighborhood to poll their community members and find out what's the most needed small safety project. And then they work together with a roundtable and they rank them. And we pushed those through. We had a separated budget through construction fund, but we've now merged that with the city's general obligation bond fund. And so it's running through that process now. So it's pretty exciting to have that. Safe Routes to School, SRTS. I don't think I used that acronym.
No, you didn't.
Good.
But I think I'll just mention the other two. You mentioned
All
arts.
roads,
Yeah, which is-
transportation safety.
Yeah, that's primarily federal safety funding
Mhm.
that's
And it's
pushed
nice.
out to states, and then ODOT has a program that allows cities and counties to apply and access those funds. And so
Yeah.
the city's working with ODOT on a couple of, actually we've been quite successful in securing arts funds with it throughout Bend for quite a wide range of projects.
Yeah, it's jurisdictionally blind, so it looks at, where's the highest crashes that we can solve for the lowest amount of money. And so then you're pretty competitive. You can come up with a solution that's low cost but high impact. So we've been able to come up with a few projects. The Greenwood project is one that we had secured a while ago. And the program runs a few years ahead of itself. So that was a good project. The other thing I could touch briefly on, I don't know if you guys have gotten an update from ODOT on the North Corridor.
Not since June. I think at our last meeting we may have had an update on it, but it's been a while.
So they've moved into that design bid procurement aspect. So they've completed all of their preliminary aspects ODOT in-house with consultant help, and now they're seeking a design builder team. So that is going on right now. The latest efforts negotiation between city and ODOT was that undercrossing that's near Roble Lane that would go under the new highway alignment and under Burlington Northern Santa Fe. And it would connect that entire neighborhood between Cooley and Empire over to the large retail jobs center with the mall and all those small businesses and industrial areas. So the city's contributing a couple $100,000 to that effort, and just to help us all get a handle on the feasibility of that undercrossing. It was in their EIS, and it's creeping ahead. It's got some life left in it. We're hopeful that the design builder can show that it's a feasible undercrossing. They have realigned the regional trail, the regional shared use path. I don't know if you guys have an update on that, but the alignment was going to be parallel to the highway, and now it's going to kind of shimmy around a little bit and weave its way over towards 3rd Street. And so it's less of a separated path and now more of a wider sidewalk. And it's going to weave around the loop ramp. So
Robin, is that on their website? Do they have an updated schematic?
It's
Okay.
not. I was just looking. So I didn't see anything. The last time they updated their website was June. So it's a little behind. They've been just, scrambling to get the project out. And I think their website isn't up to date. So those are the two big things on that project that are moved.
I've got David Amerton with his hand up. He may have some information on
you
that
might
for
have
you,
more.
Robin.
Great.
Robin or David, you can unmute now.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Cool. So Robin, those documents are on the project website. There's two documents. There's a US 20, sorry, it's draft proof of concept US 97 and draft proof of concept US 20. And those were updated June 24th. My internet is not allowing these PDFs to fully load, but I can assure you that they do when you have a functioning computer and functioning internet access. And then I also just wanted to clarify the undercrossings that Robin mentioned of the new highway alignment. Those undercrossings are in the FEIS. The undercrossing of the railroad is not a part of the EIS.
Right.
All right.
Any questions on that?
Yeah, Robin, do you have anything else you wanted to share?
No, that's everything. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Russell.
Just a couple quick updates. Our TGM grant scope of work includes the Alpenglow community plan, the rural trails out by Sisters. We're to the next hurdle now. Now we're going with the consultant and ODOT are working on the scope, but we're getting ever closer. So we're hoping for a fall start on that. The Alpenglow one will focus heavily on bike and ped issues. Tomorrow, our board is having a joint meeting with the city council, and I see the back half talks about transportation safety. So I'm assuming that relates to the campaign you're getting ready to brief them on. Also, ODOT Emerald Shirley is going to brief our planning commission on the 6th on the Alpenglow roundabout project. And I'm also talk about the bike undercrossing in Alpenglow. At this stage, ODOT is just building within their right of way. So it's not the undercrossing yet. They'll have to come back to the county and get a CUP to do the part where it goes from Highway 20 down to Strickland, which is a cul-de-sac on we'll call it the south side of US 20. So they can have that good connection so you can get back and forth from one side of Alpenglow to the other, going underneath the highway. And then lastly, I'll be going to our PC on the 2030, but just a general transportation system plan update. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
It looks like Dave Thompson, you have a question?
Yeah, I did have a question. I was just curious from your perspective, Peter, what the status of the TSP is at this point.
Well, we have an adopted 2012 TSP, and what we're doing now is updating that one to go to 2040. So we've had some initial technical memos. You can go to DeschutesCountyTSP.com, I believe is the website Kittleson is using. So we haven't had a lot of public outreach yet. They're still kind of looking at existing conditions, future conditions, things like that, functional reclassifications, but we'll have more public outreach. We're using our planning commission as our public advisory body. So as summer gives way to fall into winter, we'll be seeing more public involvement on the TSP.
Obviously, we've been working with Kittleson, but I was just curious from your perspective if things were moving along the way you thought they were going to.
Yeah, I mean, BPAC gave us their wish list of what they'd like to see. So, we're going and looking at that as well. And then, eventually the TSP will have a prioritized list of not just road projects, but bike and ped projects. So, yeah, these things just take a while. And so the public involvement will start more in earnest here in a couple of months.
Thanks.
All right, do any of our other TAC members have anything they'd like to share with the group? All right. Well, thanks for the updates, everyone. And again, I'll just, do we have any public comment? Wendy or Gary want to share anything? All right. Thank you. So our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for October 6th at 10 a.m. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Good, thanks.
Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Louie.
Take care, everyone.